Hi, this is In the Wild with Chris. When we're out in the wild, freeze-dried foods are a good source of calories and nutrients. They're lightweight to carry along, so you can carry a lot of it. The downsides are they're quite bland in taste. They contain a lot of additives. Also, if you're gluten or lactose intolerant like my wife, it's really hard finding freeze-dried foods that you can eat. So to remedy this, you can make your own dried foods. If you dry food, they can be kept in storage for a long time. And if you dry it and then freeze it, you can keep it in the freezer until you want to go out. So I'm going to show you how to make your own dried and frozen meal. In this example, I'm going to make a taboulleh, a leaf parsley bulgur salad that I serve with chicken. But to do that, I have to go back inside into the kitchen. Come along. Time to make some dried food. One important thing to remember when you're drying food is to avoid fats and oils, because that will spoil the food and make it go rancid a lot faster. For the taboulleh, you need the bulgur. This is a gluten-free bulgur. I have some leaf parsley, tomatoes, and red onion. And for flavoring that I add later when I'm out in the wild, I have some olive oil and some lemon juice. The tomatoes I slice as thinly as possible. You spread out the sliced tomatoes on a baking paper and then you put it in the oven at 70 degrees. The onion I slice very thinly and chop it up. After chopping up the onion, I spread it out on a baking paper and I dry that in the oven as well at about 70 degrees. The tomatoes and onions I also dry in the oven for about 10 hours until they're dry and brittle. To make it ready to eat when I'm out in the wild, I will pre-boil the bulgur, then dry it. After boiling the bulgur with some extra bouillon to add flavor, I put this also on a baking sheet and let it dry in the oven. After about 3 hours in the oven at 70 degrees, the pre-cooked bulgur is nice and crisp and ready to be bagged. After the bulgur is dried and cooled off, I chop up leaf parsley and mix it in with the bulgur before packing it in a bag. Olive oil and lemon juice I will keep in small bottles that I will add just before eating. At first I dried these thinly sliced pieces of chicken breast, but after drying them and I tried to rehydrate them, I soaked them in water for a couple of hours and it was still tough as leather. So instead I'm going to go for grating chicken. I grate a frozen chicken fillet. It's easier to grate it when it's frozen. And it will become almost like a ground chicken. Don't skimp on the flavoring. I made a marinade out of soy sauce, sriracha mayo, and garlic. And I'm gonna add some more. Since dry food is kind of bland and kind of hard to keep a good flavor. Now the grated and marinated chicken I spread out as thinly as possible on a baking sheet on baking paper. Then I put it in the oven at 150 degrees to pre-bake for about 15 minutes. After pre-baking for 15 minutes at 150 degrees, you can lower the temperature to about 70. Take it out and pour off the excess fluids. Chop it up a little bit. After you chopped it up, put it on a new dry baking paper and spread it out. And now we put it back in at 70 degrees. After about 7 hours in the oven drying, the grated chicken is dry and very brittle, and it's ready. So here we had the complete meal for 2 persons. We have the bulgur with the leaf parsley, we have the dried chicken, and the onions and tomatoes. I packed them in separate bags because they need different times of soaking in water before. But I'll show you that when we go out in the wild and have a lunch. I pack the food in these vacuum bags, but you don't need to do that. You can use ordinary plastic bags to stick them in the freezer. This meal for 2 persons weighs about 250 grams. The first thing I have to do is rehydrate the tomatoes, onions, and the chicken, which I do by pouring in some hot water. Seal up the bag and let it sit for a bit. After letting the tomatoes and onions soak for about 10 to 15 minutes, and the chicken as well, I pour over the pre-cooked bulgur and leaf parsley into a pot. Put it on a stove, and then I start by emptying the fluids from the tomatoes here. Add some more water. Let the bulgur soak as well. Now I mix in the tomatoes and onions. Let them soak together. Also keeping the flavor from the tomatoes in there. After the bulgur has soaked for a bit, together with the tomatoes and onion, I want to heat it up a little bit. Bring it up to a boil so it's hot. After it's boiled for a bit, turn it off and pour off the excess fluids. Now I add the olive oil. I have this little handy souvenir bottle of olive oil. Is also good because it's extra calories that you need when you're out hiking. Got some lemon juice, also in a little souvenir bottle. Tasted. Well, need some more salt. Yeah, done. Time to serve this. The taboulleh. And now I want to heat up the chicken a little bit. And serve the chicken on the side here. Time to try it. Yeah, good taste. Chicken works very good too, and it's kept its flavor, and yeah, it's a good meal. So anyway, that's how you make your own dried food to bring out in the wild. It's quite time consuming. It takes several days for the food to dry. It's not much work, it takes a long time, so you have to plan ahead. And also, you know what you put in this stuff. There are no additives. These are just basic raw ingredients, and it's gluten-free, lactose-free. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna serve my wife as well, and I hope she enjoys it. Until next time, this is In the Wild with Chris, and I'm out.